everyone, it is Katie here from the Queen of Teen Fiction, and it is time to share with you the books that I've been reading throughout June. So I've only actually managed to finish reading 4 books this month, mostly because I have been focusing a lot of my time on preparation for Camp NaNoWriMo, which still isn't going well. So yeah, that has kind of slowed down my reading a lot this month. Also, I've had this problem where I've started a lot of books but haven't actually finished them yet. So I'm kind of in the middle of a couple of books that I just couldn't get finished in time to include in this wrap up. So let's get started. The first book that I read this month is Surface Tension by S.R. Atkinson. This is book 2 in the Siren anthology. I spoke about the first book in this series in last month's wrap up video. That was called Breathing Water. I had a lot of mixed feelings about the first book because I really adored some aspects of it and then just didn't enjoy a lot of the other stuff. So I was a little bit worried going into this book because I didn't know if I was going to enjoy it as much as I wanted to. Basically with this second book I ended up having the same problems that I had with the first book. Once again, it splits narrative between following 18-year-old Santiago and then telling a completely different story with a new character. So it follows Santiago in modern day. She's trying to choose what she wants to do with her life after the events in the previous book. She's trying to figure out if she wants to return to the water and stay living there. And then the other narrative follows a character called Carmen. We actually find out who she is in the book, but I don't want to say that because it's spoilery. But she is a significant person and we get to learn her story. And so once again, I ended up enjoying Carmen's story a lot more than Santiago's story. Even though I feel like Santiago is the main character of this series, she's the protagonist that we follow the most, I prefer everything that's going on away from her. Carmen's story is actually set in the past as well, so I think it's around either the 40s or 50s. She's a mermaid that has to come to land to try and lure in this heir of King Tullus, who we read about in the first book. His heir has the ability to kill the main villain in this series and save all of the Sarahs underwater. So Carmen's mission is to get him to come underwater with her, but she ends up changing her mind drastically when she meets him. Her story was just really fantastic, and I feel like I should be enjoying Santiago's story more because she's younger. She's the young adult part of this series, but I'm just not connecting to her at all. Also, she has a best friend named Rogan who is a Sarah, so he lives underwater. They are best friends, but their friendship turned romantic like I predicted that it would, and I'm just not feeling that romance. So yeah, once again, this book has left me with mixed feelings, and I'm glad I read it because Carmen's side of the story was really fantastic and there were other aspects of it that I loved as well. So yeah, I enjoy reading it, but I still have issues. The next book that I read is The Raven King by Nora Sakavic. This is the second book in a series called All for the Game. I mentioned that I read the first book in this series in my last wrap-up video. I did say that it was a series I was very apprehensive going into because I honestly did not expect to like it, and then I ended up way more emotionally invested than I intended to be. Yeah, that continued to grow with this second book. I'm into this series now. I'm just so invested in these characters. I don't want to talk too much about this one because I do actually plan to have an overall discussion video for the series when I finish all 3 books. I only have about 25% of the final book left to go. So yeah, I will be finishing that very soon. When I do, I will film a video that discusses all 3 of these books because they need to be discussed. These books deal with some hardcore issues. I don't really know how to summarise it. I struggled summarising the first book, but it is about the son of a gangster. Some real mafia style gangsters in this series, and it also revolves around a fictional sport called Exy. But that's about all I can say really, because everything that goes on in this book I want to talk about in depth. I want to discuss it properly, so that's why I'm doing a discussion video and avoiding saying too much about it now. As I said last month, the first book on Kindle is free to download, so anyone can give it a try, but you need to be warned that it is a very, very dark trilogy. I was warned before I started reading it that it was mentally draining, and I kind of assumed that people were exaggerating a little bit, but then reading this second book I realised that they definitely were not exaggerating. This one really made me very emotional. There's a point towards the end where I was in tears reading it, and I don't cry that much during books. I usually cry at endings of series, not normally during second books in a trilogy, but yeah, this book brought me to tears because there are some desperately sad situations and these characters go through so much. And yeah, I feel like I'm doing a terrible job explaining why I love this book. It's just one of those things that you've got to try for yourself to see if you like it or not. But I'm so glad that I was encouraged to read this book because I don't think I'd have discovered it if people hadn't have told me about it. This trilogy is just a real hidden gem. The third book that I read this month is The Next Together by Lauren James. This is a book that I've been meaning to read for such a long time. And I bought it a couple of months ago and it was one of those books that I still didn't have time to get to because I was reviewing a lot of others. But then I took part in a UK YA book club which is run by Lucy from the Queen of Contemporary, and this was one of the 2 books that they were reading throughout the month of June, and I thought that was the perfect opportunity for me to finally pick this up and start reading it. And of course I ended up wishing that I picked it up sooner because it was amazing. The Next Together is a sci-fi book, but it also has historical elements because the characters, Matthew and Kate, we meet them during several different time periods. This book is about them being reincarnated several times, and they have to meet each other again and fall in love again, and then they get torn apart by death. So yeah, pretty heartbreaking. The time periods are, I think, 1745, then 1854, and then 2019, and 2039. The 2019 version of Matthew and Kate, we don't actually get to properly meet them. Their story is told through notes and blogs and articles and stuff, and I really loved that because I love books that include things that break up the chapters. And there is a page that just has 2019 Kate's Tumblr blog. So throughout the course of the book you're trying to figure out why they've been reincarnated, what is their purpose in each time period. And by the time I reached the end of the book I still didn't fully understand what the purpose was. I have a little bit of an idea why they've been reincarnated, but I don't know everything. So I'm very, very keen to get to the sequel that comes out later this year because I just need to know so many things. I have a lot of questions. So it's one of those books that's frustrating but in a good way. And yeah, I definitely wish I'd read it sooner, but I'm glad that I finally had the chance to read it. And also because it was during a book club, I got to speak to other people about it as well, which was great. If you haven't read this, then I highly recommend it. So the last book that I finished reading this month is Two Summers by Amy Friedman. I like the cover for this because... woo! Woo! It's pathetic, the things that I get excited about, it really is. So this book is basically what it tells you in the title. It's about 2 summers. The character is actually called Summer, and it's about her 2 summers. So Summer's parents are divorced and her father is a painter in France. She doesn't get to see him that often because of his job. He gives her the opportunity to come and stay with him over the summer, and so when we first meet her she is in the airport getting ready to board the plane to go to France. There is a thunderstorm going on outside and suddenly she gets a phone call, and the first chapter ends with us not knowing whether she's picked up the phone or whether she's ignored the call. Then the book splits into 2 kind of parallel universes. One where she picked up the phone and one where she didn't. If she'd picked up the phone, it would have been her father telling her that he's actually gone to Berlin to do some work and that he doesn't think it's a good idea for her to come to France anymore, so she turned around and went home. In the universe where she ignored the phone, she got on the plane and went to France regardless, and ended up meeting a lady named Vivian and her daughter Eloise that live in her father's house. So it basically just shows you 2 different outcomes from one decision, which I really liked because I like that whole what if idea. What if I did this instead of this? I mean, I'm still a little confused as to why it happened. I'm assuming the storm had something to do with it because there is another storm at the end of the book when everything rights itself. So it's kind of random that Summer's life got split into 2, but I really enjoyed it. It is a contemporary novel, so there are 2 separate romances in the 2 different summers. In France she meets a cute French guy called Jacques, Back at home, she actually finally starts to get to know her longtime crush, Hugh. But it doesn't focus entirely on the romance. A lot of it is about her relationship with her best friend, Ruby, and how it's changing over the summer. I've noticed this is a particular theme that I keep reading in contemporary novels lately, is that it's challenging friendships a lot more, which I like because friendships are so important. So I'm really happy that YA books are starting to focus a lot on friendship and how it changes and how that's okay. It also focuses on Summer's relationship with her family as well. There's a lot of issues that they have to work out. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but it's still a really fun read. Summer is a hilarious narrator. She also discovers that she's very talented at photography throughout the course of this book. So there's a lot of photography things going on, which I liked because I love photography. I think I actually enjoyed it a lot more than I intended to, because I was wondering if it was going to be another cliche contemporary, but it really wasn't. So I highly enjoyed it, and it's a perfect summer read, as you can see. It's all about summer. So they are the 4 books that I have finished reading this month. Like I said, I've actually started a lot more, just haven't finished them yet, so I'll talk about them next month, hopefully. So yeah, that's about it for this month. I will see you next time with a lot more books throughout July. It's a good job that I'm halfway through a couple of books, because my reading might be messed up a lot by Camp NaNoWriMo, but yeah, we'll see how that turns out. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know all the books you've been reading throughout June in the comments. What do you plan to read throughout July? Let me know all the things. I will see you next time. Bye!